Hey, hi, and welcome back to the Southern Millennial Mom podcast. I am Samantha May, and I am your official Southern Millennial Mom. First off, as usual, thank you for everyone that continues to return to this podcast. Thank you for listening to me rant, ramble, reminisce, or just talk about the things that I find important. Somebody else may also find important. I do appreciate you so very much. To all of the new listeners, welcome. There are a few episodes that you have missed, but that is a-okay because you can always go back and listen to those episodes. I do highly recommend that you listen to them before listening to a new episode so that you can get in the know in case I say something from a previous episode. As a quick disclaimer, this podcast is not sponsored by any brand, company, product, or business. If I am talking about something in a good way, it is because I like it, and I think you might like it, and encourage you to try it or listen to it. If I talk about it in a not so good light, it is because I don't like it, and I don't recommend that you listen, use, or participate in it. If this podcast does become sponsored, you all will be the first to know. After my husband. As a quick PSA, the legal names of any minor talked about on this podcast will not be said unless I or a future guest has permission from the parent or guardian of the minor, or said minor is old enough to understand what using their legal name could entail on the internet. As a quick recap of the last episode, I talked about how you can teach your kids to deal with bullies. My daughter has been dealing with bullies throughout the entire time she's been going to school. But these are the things that I do, and my husband does, that I talked about in this episode that I encourage you to try, which is open communication between yourself and your child, self-defense, verbal and physical. And the last one is open-mindedness, because we have all heard stories on why a lot of bullies act the way they do. So go give that one a listen to if your child is dealing with that, or you're worried your child will deal with that. And let me know what you thought. Now, I know it has been a long while since the last episode, and that is due to me not being able to find a topic I feel I want to talk about. And a lot of that had to do with planning my daughter's birthday party, because Boo just turned 13. I get just a little bit emotional thinking about that, because my husband and myself kept a human being alive for 13 years from birth. But after all that stuff, and I would start recording, talking about a topic, and I would stop and choose a different, and so on for a few days. I just kept thinking about what I could do. And then I thought about my daughter's party and how we handled that. That just kept popping into my head. So let's talk planning a kid's party. Let's get into it. One thing that I have learned in the 13 years my daughter has been alive and I've been throwing birthday parties for her, kids don't need birthday parties every single year. That is my first point. I highly recommend that if you're going to have a party, like a big blowout kind of party, do it for those milestone years. Because unless you have the one kid have amazing budgeting skills or have unlimited resources in which you can have big parties every year for all of your kids, doing that every year can sometimes lead to you being mentally, physically, and financially overwhelmed. Obviously, you want to celebrate the first birthday. If you are a new parent, you are celebrating not just the anniversary of your child's birth, you are celebrating the fact that you and maybe your significant other kept this human being alive for a full year. And nobody went completely off the rails for an extended period of time. Yes, there might have been some mental breakdowns along the way due to sleep deprivation, postpartum depression, or just not knowing what to do. If you are a parent of multiple children, congratulations. You did not lose the baby in the chaos of multiple kids. But I do not recommend, no matter how many kids you have, having birthday parties every single year. Celebrate those milestone years. Age 1, age 5, age 10, when they start that double digit level up, 13, and so on. Make those birthdays super special. And that kind of moves into my next point, which is planning those parties and sending out invitations months ahead of the actual party date. I asked Boo, we were all sitting in the living room after dinner one night, and I asked her what she wanted to do because, again, this was a milestone year, 2024. Boo turned 13, and I really wanted to make this super special for her, and so did my husband. So I asked her what she wanted to do, and she sat for a minute, and she thought about what she wanted, and she's like, I want a Nerf war. And you are probably just as confused as I was if you're hearing about this for the first time. I asked her, are you sure? She's like, yeah, I'm sure. And I don't know if she saw something on YouTube that she wanted to replicate for a party or a challenge. But I was like, I looked at my husband, I'm like, you good with that? He's like, I'm good with that. So Boo got a Nerf war for her party. And usually a lot of people will wait maybe a month in advance, depending on what your financial situation is, before even thinking about it. Or if you've already planned it out with your kid, that's great. And I am one of those people that has a very bad habit of waiting a month at the most to even think about the birthday party or plan it and send out invitations. If you are planning that milestone birthday, do it months ahead because that allows you to book anything that you need for said party. A venue if you're having it outside of the home. Equipment that you are renting for the party if it's at home. The baker for the cakes, the cookies, the whatevers. And this also will allow anybody that you invite to have time to plan for the party. Again, I am speaking from experience and from my mistakes, and I am learning from those mistakes, usually waiting a week before the birthday to send out invitations. Not a good idea because somebody may have a family get-together planned, a vacation planned, or something else planned, and they won't be able to come, which will disappoint your child. And when it comes to planning all of this, this goes into the next point. Allow the kids to help plan the party and create the invitations. Now, when it comes to the invitations, my next point I want to talk about after this one will be what needs to be on the invitation if you're a first-time parent and you've never done this or you've never created an invitation at all. if you're throwing a surprise party, they ain't got no say. Hopefully, you know what they're into, or you can talk to their friends and let them plan it. Hopefully, they can keep a secret. But if it comes to a surprise party, I do not recommend that kind of party until maybe the age of 10. Because little kids, they get excited for their birthday, like they get a special treat. And if they think that you forgot their birthday, they're going to be so sad. Nobody likes a sad kiddo. And even though they're excited they got the party, they're still going to have that feeling of kind of disappointment that you made it seem like you forgot their birthday. And that's not a good feeling to have. When it comes to your littles, kids under the age of 5, maybe 6, because there is a transition for some reason between the age of 5 and 6. It's so weird. But littles under the age of 5, all they care about is if they have their favorite cake, their friends and loved ones, and presents. That's all they care about. If you happen to know what they're into or what they're obsessed with, have that kind of theme party if that's what you can do. And I'm going to go on a very rocky rabbit trail when it comes to the presents. I have seen this a lot of the parties Boo has been invited to, that we have all been invited to when it comes to children. There is that point when birthday boy or birthday girl are opening their presents. That is when it seems that the thought of personal space, or that it's someone else's birthday party, that kids just seem to forget around present time. It sounds so harsh, and it probably is for a lot of people. I'm probably hurting a lot of people's feelings by talking about this, but I want you to think about it as if it is happening to you. You don't want people crowding around your space when you're trying to open a present. They're yelling at you to hurry. You don't want people opening your gifts, and you want to be able to see the people around watching you. You want to get pictures. I know, like, specifically kind of for preteens and teenagers, they want to get pictures of their presents and whatnot. You wouldn't want somebody to mess with your stuff after you have opened it. I have put into place a plan. Well, not really a plan, but more of a phrase, we'll say, when it comes to Boo at birthday parties. That if she is crowding around birthday boy, birthday girl, I just tell her personal space. She takes 2 or 3 steps back, and she is out of the way of people trying to get pictures, people trying to see what birthday boy or birthday girl got. And this is something I encourage all parents to do, especially parents of very little children who, again, really kind of have no concept of personal space. If you know your child is prone to reaching into somebody else's presents, like gift bags, or they will take a present that is opened and try to play with it without asking permission, please keep your child with you. Keep them in your lap or in their own little seat, wherever, away from the presents, the birthday boy or girl, and allow that child to enjoy opening their presents without worrying another child is going to do something to or with their gifts. Now, this kind of behavior, obviously, with crawling babies, all they see is something shiny or sparkly, and they want to get into it. And that's cute at first. But if that behavior continues as they get older and no boundaries are set as they get older, that is bad behavior. And there is a very high chance of your child not getting invited to birthday parties ever again because of said behavior. So I highly recommend nipping that in the bud as quickly and as swiftly. That was redundant, but as quickly as possible. Now, like I said, this is a rocky rabbit trail. This is what I have always felt parents should be doing when it comes to birthday parties and what I do at birthday parties. So we are going to go back to the main trail and talk about letting your kids plan their parties. The littles don't care. Well, they might, but for only what goes on during the party, but they won't care to be in the planning process. But the older kids can tell you what they want, and if you can't do that, you let them know what you can do. And it seems beyond reason crazy, but learn to compromise with your kids because it's their special day. They only get a true personal day once every 365/66 days a year. Compromise with what you can and can't do. And another thing is to remind them small parties are just as great as big blowouts. Or remind yourself that. There are some kids and, that milestone age of 21, young adults that may just want a sleepover, a night at the movies, going to their favorite restaurant because they know they'll get a free dessert. Small parties can be just as fun as the big parties. When it comes to all of that, let them help you create the invitations. That's what I did with Boo. A few days after we asked her what she wanted, I pulled up my Canva program on my laptop. I asked her what she kind of wanted on it, or asked her what she wanted. She kind of had an idea. I tried to incorporate all of her ideas. She came back, checked it out, and asked for some changes, which I was fine with. They weren't outrageous. But if you would like to create your own invitations for anything, I highly recommend the Canva app. It's very first-time user-friendly, and I personally enjoy using it. So go check it out. I don't have any kind of code or anything, but it's one of those things I enjoy that I think you might enjoy. But when making the invitations, let them have a say in what is on it. This leads us into the next point of what actually needs to be on the invitation itself. Obviously, the first thing is the name and the new age that they are turning. Now, we all know that as kids and as we did when we got older, sometimes our friends didn't call us by our actual names. They had nicknames, and usually it's the same or some variation of it. If your child prefers being called that, put that on their invitation instead of the name that is on their birth certificate. Remember, it is their day. The next thing is location and time. If you are not having your kids' party at your home, I really do recommend that you call the establishment that you're having this at and ask them what the address is, because sometimes whatever navigation program, application, whatever you want to call it, whatever navigation application you're using, sometimes it might not be updated properly, which I've had so many terrifying experiences thinking that I went to the wrong place and I'm going to be late. Either call the place or go there yourself, because it is highly likely that if your navigation system is wrong, theirs will be too. So make sure you have the proper directions, maybe include landmarks so that your guests won't get lost or be late. And if you are having it at your home, I recommend that you have some way to make your house noticeable for people coming over for the first time. Like, it's the house with the big blue door, it's the one with the bouncy house in front of it, or something like that. Have something that is obviously noticeable as a kind of landmark so that your guests know for sure it is your home. Even if, all the cars parked in front of your house is not a good enough indicator. Have a definitive start and ending time. Another thing you should have on the invitation is what food you're going to have. And since you are sending out these invitations months ahead of time, hopefully the parents will contact you to let you know if their child has a specific food allergy or they are intolerant to specific foods. Somewhere on your invitation should be if you have pets or animals and what you plan on doing with them. And I will get into that a little bit later. Obviously, on the invitation, you need to have what you're planning on doing at the party, what activities, what events you're going to be participating in, so that parents know if their child can actually participate in these things. And what I consider the last and most important thing is clear RSVP instructions and a deadline for the RSVP. Now, after all of that, I'm going to give you a little bit of reason why you need to have those clear RSVP instructions and the deadline. So I'm on TikTok, and obviously TikTok has a lot of different kind of content. 2 videos I came across was the same creator, and the stories that she was talking about were local news stories, not her local, somebody else's local. And they basically had the same point, but they were 2 different stories, obviously. The first video of hers I came across was of this bride and groom had sent out save the date cards for their wedding 4 months ahead of said wedding, which is, the proper time to send out those kind of cards. And they must have had obvious RSVP instructions and a deadline. So when that deadline came and passed, the bride checked to see who didn't RSVP to the wedding and sent out a letter or an email or something. It was very polite. It has been a long while since I have seen that video, but there was the letter in the video. It was really polite. All they asked was that the people that did not RSVP to not show up. And obviously, enough people became offended by this letter, email, whatever, that it became a local news story. I do remember some of the things. Obviously, there was a reminder that they had 4 months to respond before the deadline came and passed. And they had in there that they had a specific amount of room in whatever venue that they were at. And if you've gotten married, you know that you send out invitations to a select number of people, but you only expect a certain number of people to come. So that's why you have the RSVP. I think that's kind of the highlighted points that I remember from this video. Now, the second video this creator that I came across, this creator, was another RSVP super fail. Not by the person doing the inviting, but by the people invited. Now, this one was a birthday party one, but the mom, she had a very limited budget, so her child could only invite so many people, and that included like 2 extra kids, who could come last minute because they weren't sure. But parents RSVP'd for their children, said that they were bringing just the kids invited. However, day of the party comes, the venue's all set up for that specific number of children that were invited, and the parents bring them and all of their siblings. Now, I honestly don't know if there was like some kind of miscommunication, or the mom didn't want to admit that she could only afford for this many kids to come. But she had, if I'm remembering correctly, 11 extra mouths to feed, and whatever else she had to accommodate for. When it came to those extra children that the parents did not say that they were bringing. All of that, as rabbit traily as that is, leads us into that point of making sure you have a way to either remind a parent to RSVP or to make sure that they read the RSVP instructions. Now, if you have a way to directly contact the parents of the kids that were invited, make sure that they actually got the invitation, especially, again, if your children are handing out physical invitations, because little kids will leave those invitations in their backpack, in their folders, and just forget about it until, either the week of or the day of said birthday party. If a few days pass and you're not sure that the parents got the invitation, write a little note and highly encourage your kid to highly encourage their friend to give the parents this note or the invitation, especially if you are outside of your home having the birthday party. And that's really where that RSVP deadline comes in, because some places can only have a certain amount of partygoers in their special party rooms or whatever. If you're having the party at home and you can, accommodate for extra people, I wouldn't worry about a deadline so much. But if you're, again, on a limited budget, emphasize that deadline that you have on the RSVP. And again, make sure that the parents actually got the invitation, because they have to see what food, and if you have pets, if you're having your party at home or somewhere where there are animals. Which leads us into my next point that I said I would talk about earlier, the pets. If you have cats, dogs, in my case, I have dogs, I have chickens and turkeys, you need to know what you're going to do with your animals. Now, I'm sure we all know at least one person that has had a very bad experience with a dog, maybe a cat, or a rooster or a turkey or whatever. You are inviting people into your home, so you have to accommodate for your guests. Yes, it's your home, but If your guests are allergic to one of your many pets, you need to know if they are. That's why, again, we send out invitations really, really early. If you can have a friend or family member take care of them for that day, see if they will. If you can put them into some kind of overnight doggy kitty hotel or whatever, try to do that. Or if you can't do any of that and you have a specific room in your home where you typically do not allow guests to go into, like your closet or the guest bedroom, hide your animals in there. When it came to Boo's party, we kept our big dog, our German Shepherd, in our master bedroom, where people typically won't go unless there is not an available bathroom. And our boxer is kennel trained, and we had her in her, we like to call the dog room, in her kennel. Our kennel was covered with a blanket. That way, if she did make some whining sounds or if there was a lot of sound chaos, it would all be dampened for her and ourselves. And even though my birds are free range, they do have a coop that we herded them into, so we didn't have to worry about any of that. And the other thing that was really, really important was the food aspect, which is the next point. If you can make accommodations for guests that have food allergies, which can sometimes be fatal depending on the severity of the allergy, or if someone has an intolerance to a specific food that you are serving, try to do that. I know it seems like all of a sudden these food allergies and intolerance are just popping up out of nowhere. It's not. They've always been there. But with social media advancing the way it is, and us having quicker access to information and medical advancements, we learn more about food allergies and intolerance that our body has or what our children's bodies have. As we're becoming more aware of all of these things, more substitutions are becoming available. Yes, not all of them are going to be the tastiest of substitutions, but it's a substitution of something that somebody may have enjoyed or may like to kind of sort of experience. Now, this is not incorporating or including, whatever you want to call it, the people that make dietary choices, like being vegetarian just because they want to be. There are some people, they can't actually tolerate beef or chicken or even fish, or a vegan diet that is, again, made by choice. But if you can accommodate for all of that, the people with the allergies, the intolerance, or even the dietary choices will feel even more welcome in your home, which is something you want, or feel welcome to be around you, your family, and so on. Which actually kind of leads into the next point: be a kid safe place. If you are willing and able to take the time and to spend the money to accommodate for a food allergy or a pet allergy, that parent will more than likely feel safe enough to leave their child in your care so that they could go run errands, go on a date, just take a break from the kids. If, especially if it's a stay at home parent, there is a kind of downside to being that kid safe space. A friend of mine who was on the podcast, Zero to a Few, part 2 is the episode she was on. And she talked about throwing a birthday party for a lovely young lady that her and her husband were taking care of. And in that time, obviously, she had a birthday and they had a party for her. Well, during all of the party stuff, parents would just drop off their kids and leave, or they would stay, but they never came up to introduce themselves to my friend and her husband. She had to go do that, which, you're coming into somebody's house who is a virtual stranger. But after the party, my friend asked the young lady she was taking care of, if it was normal for parents to do that. And the kid was like, yeah, that's normal. All my friends have cell phones and so on. And she was just blown away that the parents just dropped their kids off at this stranger's house, didn't come in, introduce themselves, give some kind of contact information. All that they knew the parent of this young lady. So obviously, if the parent felt safe enough leaving her child in the care of my friend, there can't be anything wrong with her. Don't do that. Don't be that kind of guest. Please don't do that. I recommend, as you being the guest, that you go inside, introduce yourself if you've never met these people before. Give them your cell phone number if they don't already have it via the RSVP. And, just make sure everything is safe for your child before just dropping them off. Now, my daughter, even though she's 13 and it's very common now for kids her age to have a cell phone, she does not, because we have come to the understanding she's not responsible enough for it. And luckily, she knows both mine and my husband's phone number. So if she needs to get in contact with us and the hosting parent does not have our number, she can use somebody else's cell phone to get in contact with us, which is, I'm going to go on to another rabbit trail. Make sure your kids know your cell phone number. I wasn't going to include this, which was a mistake that I was going to make, but make sure your children know your cell phone number by heart. Or I've heard of people having bracelets or doing the permanent marker covered in clear nail polish technique. Do something where your child either knows it by heart or has it where they can read it, or an adult can read it and get in contact with you in case of an emergency. Now, when it came to Boo's party, there were several children whose parents, they came inside, introduced themselves, and asked if it was okay that they left their child at my home, because to them, I was a complete stranger, but their kids were friends with my kid. And I told them it was fine if they wanted to drop off their kids. I would text them, since they text their RSVP response, which was what I required. And their kids also had their own cell phones, so they could let their parent know that they were ready to leave. Now, this actually leads into the next point: knowing when to kick people out. It might seem harsh, especially if it's family, close friends, But even though you've been planning this birthday party for months, everything is going right, but that definitive ending time is coming closer, and all that adrenaline and excitement is wearing out, and you are ready for people to leave your home and either finish cleaning up or just stopping and relaxing because you've been on your feet all day, possibly. Do not overwhelm yourself or even your family with lingering guests. Again, whether they're family, friends that are basically like family. If you are ready for your guests to leave and it is end time for the party and you have people that just keep lingering, don't let them. By the time the end time for booze party came along, I still had a few kids. Most of them were outside, but I had a couple boys there were a couple boys at Boo's party. One was Boo's friend, one was his younger brother. They had been playing out in the sun. They just were completely worn out. I could tell that they weren't ready to go because they were playing with all the Pokemon cards that my daughter got for her birthday from her amazing uncle. But I could tell they were tired and they needed to go home. So I texted their mom, let them know that they looked like they were ready to go home because they did. That mom intuition kicked in, and I knew they were probably completely forgetting that they could text their mom and say, hey, come get us. We're ready to go. And if you still have those lingering guests that, they drove there, if they're older and you're ready for them to leave and they won't leave, make them help you clean up, which kind of leads into the next point and final point, the cleanup process. Now, a lot of places, if you're having the party somewhere else, they have staff that clean up after the party, and, all you have to do is, get your gifts and get out. But if you're having it at home, there is all that chaos of cups, paper plates, plasticware, everything like that could be laying around. I do not recommend that you just leave all of that laying around till after the party. I highly encourage that you clean up during the party, which I'm saying this more to myself than to you, the listener, because I'm really bad at leaving all that stuff laying around until after the party. And luckily, I had some great people there that, would randomly pick up the stuff for me since I was busy doing the hosting thing. My husband was doing the hosting thing as well. He was entertaining all the kids with the Nerf war thing. Even if you have, just the cake, cupcakes, whatever, to put away, the drink containers to put away, do not sit down for 5 minutes because you've been on your feet all day, unless, you have a medical condition or, you're pregnant. Get all of that stuff done as quickly and efficiently as possible so that you can sit down for the rest of the day, the rest of the evening, whenever, the party ends for your child. And that way, if you don't have anything planned for the next day, you can just sit at home, relax. Your kid can play with all the cool things they got for their birthday, and everyone can just have a chill day. Do what they want and relax. And that is all my advice for planning your kids and executing your kids' birthday party. I know how that sounded. It sounded better in my head than actually out of my mouth, like a lot of things do. But I hope this helped somebody, maybe a first-time parent or a a single parent that is struggling with these kind of things, that don't normally deal with these kind of things, I hope it helps somebody. Now, if you have any comments or questions or recommendations of your own when it comes to planning a kid's party, you can send all of those to southernmillennialmoms@gmail.com. That is southernmillennialmoms@gmail.com. Wherever you found this podcast, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, so you can get notified of updates and episode drops. I hope y'all have a great and fabulous whatever time of day it is. Okay. Love y'all. Bye.